but it was more of like an exhale that I felt. And I don't know if anyone else felt like that, but I could just see us unraveling a little bit each week, and just we couldn't stop nodding our heads, and it was incredibly validating. I didn't ring the bell, so like there's no proof that I went through what I went through. And I think that would be really, really nice to ring it with you all, because then I'm entering that space with you, and I wouldn't be so alone. And I don't feel alone anymore, but I wouldn't do it alone.
Welcome to Life on Pause, a podcast defining the experience of being a young adult with cancer. Each episode we explore issues impacting young adults in and after treatment. Like what you hear or have something to add? Come join us for our next recording.
Thank you all for joining us today. Today we're talking about the PhotoVoice project that was held over the summer of 2025 with our Survivorship clinic. Invitations were sent out, and this is the group that responded and participated. So Meredith, can you tell us a little bit about what the PhotoVoice project was?
I'm Meredith Knoll. I am the social worker in our long-term follow-up clinic that started the idea for PhotoVoice and was so fortunate to have this group of strong survivors participate in it this past summer. The PhotoVoice project is a way for people with unrepresentation to be able to express their feelings and emotions behind certain topics. So we chose that with cancer survivorship and their experiences with childhood cancer. So each week we had a theme, and our participants went out and took pictures around that theme. We came back and then reviewed the pictures and just had great conversation about what those photos meant to them and the journey that they've been on. And then at the end of that experience, we had this great gallery event where the participants all got to meet one another in person. And we had pictures on display. They were blown up. We had, some of them had their physicians that treated them while they were on therapy attend. We had family members attend and individuals from the community. So it was just a great way for people to share their voice and what their experience with cancer meant to them through photography.
That's an awesome explanation. And it sounds like I'm excited to hear more from our participants' perspective, and I'll turn it over to Lily to get started.
My name is Lily Montgomery, and I'm currently 25 years old. When I was 6 years old, I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So now I identify as a cancer survivor. It is so exciting to see you guys. We have not been together as a group since the gallery that was in September, so it's super exciting to see your faces. We are missing Kayla, which I want to acknowledge that we have another PhotoVoice member who couldn't be with us tonight, but has, her own unique story and journey with this whole process. Meredith, you gave a wonderful explanation of the project, so we can kind of skip that part, but I wanted to start with, if you guys can think back to the beginning of summer, or even earlier than that, really, what drew you to the project, or what made you say yes to doing PhotoVoice?
I'm Monica Henderson. I am 26 years old. When I was 2, I was diagnosed with a soft tissue sarcoma called rhabdomyosarcoma, and I am 20 plus years into survivorship. So I don't know why 2025 just started to be on this journey with me, on this healing journey. Up until this year, I have had a lot of anger and felt incredibly lonely, and like it was too late to seek out joy and connection. And I kind of was in this state of, well, why seek out comfort now? I've already gotten this far in my life. And up until this point, as someone growing up in the early 2000s, there was hardly any resources for pediatric cancer survivors in general. And as I aged, I felt even more excluded because I wanted to make sure that the resources for the upcoming kids were geared towards them, but I also didn't feel like I wanted to step into the young adult cancer space if that wasn't entirely my experience. I wanted to make sure all the spaces were reserved for who they were a part of. Now, I will say that I'm welcome in any spaces, but for me, that's how I felt. So when I saw that this was a specific program for adult survivors of pediatric cancer, at first I was like, girl, are you really going to do that? Like, this is your first time talking to anybody about your experience. Is this the right thing to do? Are these people already going to know each other? And again, I kind of took this leap of like faith and went, my life has been really, really hard up until this point. It probably can't get any worse if I just sit and listen. And as soon as I got into that space, I just could not stop talking. I was scared, so scared that I was going to say the wrong thing and not be able to articulate the right things. But it was more of like an exhale that I felt. And I don't know if anyone else felt like that, but I could just see us unraveling a little bit each week. And just, we couldn't stop nodding our heads. And it was incredibly validating. After each session, just started writing down everything I said, because it was, again, the first time I even let myself feel, like actually feel, and in my own way, not attached to my family and not attached to a larger goal or image. It was just me, and I could be as raw as I needed to, and angry as I needed to, and dark as I needed to, and it was great. And that's what I needed at that time. And since then, I was able to gain the confidence to kind of address those insecurities that I had, and I'm still working on to this day.
Hi, I'm Gabriela, but you can call me Gabby. When I was 17 years old, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. Currently, I am 21 years old, so I am almost 4 years into survivorship. Back in May, I had my first survivorship clinic, so I'm fairly a little bit newer. And I remember I met Meredith for the first time, and I was kind of just introduced to the survivorship clinic as a whole. And I remember I had gotten like all these like papers and like flyers of things, that like were happening at the time. And I remember a flyer for PhotoVoice was inside of it. And Meredith had talked to me a little bit about like what it was, just sharing like photos and like talking about our cancer experiences. And one side of me that I love to do is just like to be creative with things. So, and I really love taking pictures. So I thought this was a great way for me to be able to get a little bit more creative and kind of step out of my comfort zone a little bit. And I was just also curious, like, what it really entailed. Like, I didn't really know what to expect. And just as the weeks went on, I felt more comfortable in knowing, like, I'm happy with how this is turning out, and being able to really share and open up about my cancer journey, because it is a little bit fairly new, and I'm still meeting people to this day, that kind of went through the same thing as me, helped me like connect more to the AYA and the survivorship clinic. So that's kind of the reason why I really wanted to join, was to meet new people, and PhotoVoice helped me be able to branch out and meet people just like me.
My name is Shelly Bliss. I'm 20 years old, and when I was 9, I was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, and am now in around 11 years of survivorship.
I went through treatment at Hershey, and I remember going through treatment and then feeling, okay, I'm all better. Like, I can move on. And that was maybe my family's mentality of like, on to the next thing. And then the survivorship clinic, I started going to that for my yearly appointments. And it was this shift of a little bit, I was with my same oncologist, but the goal was a little bit different. And then the idea of survivorship kind of opened me up to the idea that this is something that I can continue to explore as time continues and not just move on from. So I think it was maybe Meredith's email of things that are going on. I heard about PhotoVoice, and I enjoy artistic things, but I don't have a lot of confidence in them, in my own ability to do them. So I thought this would be a good way to step outside of my comfort zone and do something a little bit different as I explored what survivorship meant to me.
Shelly, I can relate to that. I really like to be creative, but it intimidates me. For whatever reason, photography felt like the safest way to dip my toes into it because, yes, there are things that we could do on our end with the photos, but a lot of it was focused on something else, and then we were just able to elaborate on it and share our stories that way. So that was a super cool piece of it. But yeah, I thought it was really special, Monica, how you said it felt like an exhale for you to finally share about this. And I know some of us have shared pieces of our cancer journeys before PhotoVoice and some of us hadn't. But can you guys talk a little bit about how it felt to share your story through photography instead of just talking about it?
It required a lot of patience. It required a lot of patience with myself. I was familiar with the PhotoVoice concept and always thought it was a great way for others to go through their life experiences intimately. But for me, I was thinking, am I really going to go out in the world and try to pick something and find meaning in it? Like, I don't know, is that going to work for me? And I also didn't want it to be too burdensome, like something that I was like stressed about throughout the week. I just wanted it to be like, this is happening. And it's kind of exactly what happened. I found most of my pictures on like walks with my dog because that's what was part of my routine in the day. And I would see something and say, you know what, I'm putting this in like my backlog. I'll look at it later. It might have meaning. And depending on each theme of the week, I would start thinking already about what was I suppressing, what was the hardest to verbalize, what made tears come to my eyes, what anger, what would I get most angry about, and then through those pictures apply it to that. And I was really proud of myself because in the beginning, again, it felt like I was trying to find the perfect picture, even though we were told not to. And then by the end, I was either repurposing pictures I didn't apply to the first week or just entirely just being free with it. And as a perfectionist, as someone who likes to plan, that is not something that I'm used to doing. And it was really nice. And I'm going to say that I'm proud of myself because I don't say that enough. So
I think for me, one thing was that there's still a lot of people, um, obviously I'm in college, so I'm obviously meeting a lot of new people. And on my Instagram, I actually have like the link to like my cancer fighting page that I created. And that's kind of like a lot of the way people find out that, oh my God, like you had cancer. And I kind of forget sometimes that I did that. Um, but then like I'll open up about it and I feel like when I do talk about it, it's really hard for people to accept. It's kind of like one of those moments like, wow, somebody like you really went through that. And I felt like with Photo Voice, it was really more of a way for me to open up without feeling judged or having that awkward moment of like, oh my gosh, like you had cancer. And obviously going into this project, I did not know what to expect. And throughout the weeks, like with the themes, like I really wanted to find things around me that, made sense of what the theme was of that week. And I feel like I put too much pressure on myself to find the perfect picture. Kind of like Monica said, I really like try to look throughout my surroundings, but to me, I couldn't find something that really expressed how I felt without showing the actual photo of it. So I would always show photos of like real time things that happened throughout my cancer journey, things that, I did or that I shared or anything like that. And I felt like that was more of the way that I could really express how I felt because I felt like an object couldn't represent it. And I always say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And the picture itself, I feel, shares enough story in real time than having to try and find an object that represented how I felt. And I feel like that's kind of more of the route that I took. But it really helped me open up a lot more and be comfortable with talking about it to people because anytime that someone, asks me about questions to this day, I'm very open with them, but there are times where it's kind of a little bit of awkwardness, and I feel like at least on myself, I can make people uncomfortable, so I always try to, show, pictures of, during happy times throughout my cancer where, to show them, "Oh, it's not as all as bad as it seems. Don't think of it just as the bad part, you're sick. Think about, what somebody actually went through and how they've overcome it."
I think I appreciated a lot how the weekly topic that we would focus on helped to give me a place to start to try to express what I maybe hadn't addressed in the past. So I I was someone who had a lot of things to share and a lot of feelings to express, but I just didn't always know how to go about doing that. So the weekly themes were great to kind of even just get the idea in my mind of things to look out for, things that could start a memory or reminiscing. And the ones I can think of off the top of my head were impact and time or lost and found. I know here was one, so like the place that we're in. And that was just very helpful for me to find direction to where I could begin to share my story when I didn't really know how to start.
Yeah, Shelly, you remembered all but one of the themes, so that was impressive. We did impact, visibility, lost and found, time, and then here. And I think all of those themes really allowed us to go in a bunch of different directions. And we kept coming back to this idea of duality or multiple things, feelings, emotions existing at the same time. And for me personally, that was really healing. I think that all of you talked at least a little bit about the way that you have learned to share your story so that it's palatable for people, or having your story shared and it's tweaked so that it has a pretty little bow on it. I think that's a really common experience for cancer survivors, and it was really special to have a space where we were all survivors and we didn't have to package it up in any specific way. We could go deeper than that and understand that there are a lot of layers to this that you maybe don't realize. And going through cancer is a beast, but the survivorship piece is really a beast of its own, and oftentimes, hopefully, it's a lot longer piece of the journey, right? I'm curious if there's any specific moment that stands out to any of you from the PhotoVoice project, from a specific week, or is there any moment that you, after, having some space from it and reflecting, are still thinking about today?
For me, the week I felt like that was the heaviest for me was Lost and Found. At that point, I wasn't too worried about holding back as much as I was about honoring the truth of my experience, and I kind of explored a lot of on the familial side and the pain that I was still carrying. And one of the photos I chose was a photo of my sister and I. We've never really had a conversation. At the time when we went through treatment, we were two, and well, let me explain. My sister is my twin. So we were going through something at the same age, and she was my rock, and we went through quite literally everything together. And as I moved on and finished active treatment, I externalized the trauma that I went through with tantrums and crying and sensitivity issues. And my parents were so understanding, helped me through that process. And I never really got to, I feel like I need to apologize to my sister as well, because she then ended up, I'll never know if this was her personality or if it was because of our treatment, but she ended up taking the more reserved route. And she was always a little bit more quiet than me and followed what I did. And I felt like had less opportunities to express herself. When growing up, even years after my treatment, the attention was always on me because I had appointments and I had follow-ups and we had to make sure that I was healthy. And that's something that you carry non-verbally over the years. And so now that I'm 20 years out of treatment, and we're in our late 20s. Oh, that sounds weird. We're in our 20s. I tried making more of an effort to speak with her about my health. She still doesn't really know like how I'm doing, right? That I'm not doing great, even though I'm years into survivorship, and that's hard to admit to someone that looks up to you and someone you want to be strong for. And I really loved that photo, and I think another great moment that came out of PhotoVoice as well was the ability for me to start conversations with my mom, who is also a cancer survivor. Her cancer experience is also part of the trauma, but also strength that I live with as well. She was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 12, and I had to go through that as well. And carrying this, both of us kind of dealt with our pain as going, well, it's not as bad as other people's perhaps, or we just keep moving on. And we had been doing that for so long that I didn't think that was fair for us. So after Photo Voice, I also wanted to say that I did this project um in thanks to you, because you provided such strength over the years for me. You made room for me to feel what I needed to feel, but I also um want this time to be for us to connect and heal over what we never got to really talk about throughout the years, and that it's okay if we're not okay now, because a parent and a child shouldn't have to go through cancer, yet alone experience the other one go through it. So we had a really great emotional conversation after Photo Voice, and I don't think that would have happened if I didn't really have the pictures to prompt those conversations and honor the time and the soul giving that she gave to me throughout the years.
One thing that just kind of sticks out to me a little bit is the gallery walk. I know that I couldn't be there in person, I was on the computer, but that's a moment that I feel like I probably will never forget. I know I can feel that, like, if I were there in person, I would have probably felt a little bit differently, but hearing my family talk about it to me, telling me how they felt seeing my pictures and being able to still be a part of the event, even virtually, it still really meant something to me to be able to share my story. And I know, like, my family loved being able to see all my pictures because none of them knew absolutely anything that was going to be shared or, like, what I had shown. And they were telling me, like, we were talking on the phone when they were, like, coming back home while I was still at school, and my grandma was crying on the phone to me, just telling me how much she loved me and showing, like, how strong I was just through those pictures. And I had to send them my speech, and as they were reading it, they, like, really understood kind of in that moment how I felt. And I know on my end, personally, I could not tell you how they felt throughout my chemo and my radiation. They were very, I don't want to say reserved, but priority was kind of focused on me. So they never cried around me. They were never mad. They were never sad. So I couldn't tell how they were feeling, how they were processing this. I mean, I knew how I was processing it, but I never knew about them. And just being able to have that conversation about it, whenever they did see the pictures, really allowed them the opportunity to open up. So I felt the gallery walk really did bring me something, and that was just a feeling of surrounded by love and happiness. I know, like, I didn't get to meet you guys in person. I mean, I had met Monica previously, but still, even being able to be somewhat still a part of it and have that moment to be able to share my story really brought me joy and allowed me to feel proud to call myself a cancer survivor.
I can think of a couple moments, and they kind of actually tie into both Monica and Gabby's answer, because I can think back to the very first call that I was a part of, and I remember signing off and just feeling like a moment of like relief, feeling that I felt more heard and understood than I thought was possible, even down to the fact of like Monica has a twin sister, and I knew it was complex to have a twin going through chemo. You think of all the what ifs, or like the how she might have been impacted, and it was so refreshing to hear someone else who had those similar concerns. And I just remember again that feeling of almost relief after, maybe like Monica mentioned, the exhale of, wow, finally I can feel heard and understood by a group of people on different levels, not just treatment, but the family relationships and things. And then also the gallery was so moving, and it felt vulnerable to be sitting there and then watching other people look at your photos blown up. And that I remember that feeling distinctly, but also it was a special feeling of the understanding that people were getting a glimpse into my experience or my perspective of different moments that were captured in a photo. So those two moments, definitely that like relief after the first initial call that I was a part of, and then how moving that gallery event was, certainly are like core memories now.
Shelly, one of mine is definitely that first meeting too, specifically because I remember telling myself, you're going to try this, and if you don't feel good about it after the first meeting, we can just be done. Like, I'll just be done. And I got off the first call and felt so happy, just like with the connection that had already formed. And I decided immediately that I wanted to keep doing it. So that first call it's like indescribable. The connections that happened instantaneously. It was very special.
My favorite moment was when at our gallery event, when you guys all met for the first time, and it was just this huge group hug. And I don't know if you guys remember, because Gabby wasn't there, but we had her on the laptop, and you all walked together to look at each other's photos blown up. And just as somebody that was on this journey a little with you, with trying to get you guys together, like, it was just the most beautiful thing that you guys have this shared lived experience, and how open and appreciative of learning from one another that was. It was just very like awe-inspiring. I just loved seeing that.
But a couple of you have already mentioned the gallery, so I do want to talk about that a little bit. And because most of you listening probably have no idea what we're talking about, we had the privilege of having our photos displayed in the Treehouse Cafe at the hospital. We each had a table set up with our pictures, and then there was also a beautiful book put together that had all of our collective pictures in it that we got to take home with us. Shelly, you dove into this a little bit, but I want to talk about what it felt like to see your pictures displayed publicly, because we were all invited to bring people that we knew and that we loved, but there were also people there who were strangers, and they were looking at this really intimate project. And I'm just curious how you all felt about that experience.
I felt different with my family than I did strangers. I was more nervous for my family to see it. Like, I think a few of us on this call, I was operating just me with this PhotoVoice. No one knew, my family didn't know, because my cancer story up until this point had been kind of like what Shelly said, it happened, we move on. I also felt like it was just something that I didn't want to bring up, because it was such a triggering thing for my family to not only remember what they went through, but then continue to have to deal with, and not have to worry about taking care of me and my long-term health. And I kind of just wanted to explore time for myself. And so when this gallery came, it wasn't until the day before where I went, oh my goodness, I don't know how my family's going to be. Are they going to like cry? Are they going to pass out? Like, whatever they did, I was like, do what you need to do. But I just was genuinely worried that I didn't want this to be too taxing on them. But then I realized, wait a minute, again, this is for me. This is taxing for me too. And so they also love me. Like, these are people that love me in like dearly. Like, they are my people and they're going to show up for me in the way I need them to show up. So they came and they these were the pictures were a way to capture what words couldn't for me. And I loved that they got to see how vulnerable I felt, how isolated, how angry, how torn. And it was a time for me to kind of reclaim my narrative a little bit and not be ashamed of it. And for anyone I didn't know, I was kind of more like, all right, ask away. Let's get into it. Like, this is not something that is this is not something that you're used to seeing, probably. This is not something all neatly tied up and packaged into a bow. These are not little kids that grew up to be maybe perfectly fine. And you need to face that reality. And I loved that this was kind of a catalyst and an advocacy call at the same time to make people uncomfortable, because sometimes we're a little too comfortable. And even though we don't have all the answers to reduce the late effects of childhood cancer treatments, or we don't have all the answers to address the trauma that happens, or to help every family, it's a start to at least be in the same place and in the same emotional state, so that we can start out together instead of kind of sweeping everything under the rug and acting like those are fine. And at the same time, there were beautiful moments that I put in my pictures. But for me, I was kind of tired of being cute and beautiful and inspirational. And if this was the first time I was actually speaking from the heart, I wanted it to be for me. And I wanted also my pictures to honor little Monica and not have to hold everything in anymore.
For me personally, my family was pretty far away, and I was there without maybe some of the family that I hoped could be there. And part of me kind of felt that that desire for them to see this side of survivorship where people are addressing it head on, and it's not just a kid that was sick, but it's like forming something out of survivorship too. And it was very impactful for me. I remember looking around and tearing up a little bit, while also mourning a little bit of the people that maybe they couldn't be there, but also recognizing the importance and beauty of the moments that were there.
Shelly, that was super important to acknowledge, because I definitely felt that too. My parents are some of the people closest to me in my life, and they were able to be there, and I was really thankful for that. But I have two older brothers who, we've talked a little bit tonight about sibling dynamics, and there's something to that with cancer journeys and survivorship. And they live 8 hours away, so they weren't there. And there is the recognition of being so appreciative to have the event and have everyone who was there, and also miss some people who you wish could have seen it as well. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot in just preparation for this call, I guess, but about how my understanding of my own story has evolved since PhotoVoice has ended, or since we did the gallery. And I'm wondering if you guys have had that experience too of, PhotoVoice may have ended for us, but it sparked a lot of different ways of thinking about our stories. Is that something that has continued for you guys over the last couple of months?
I don't know, I might need a few more months to reflect on how I've been now. But at this point in my life, I've explained to you all, and I'm so thankful that I had this space where I could kind of combat those insecurities that I had. Like, you all helped me feel like I was enough when I didn't feel like I was enough. You helped me feel like I wasn't an imposter, or that I had every right to share my story whenever I wanted to. And unfortunately, time might not have been on my side. Maybe little Monica, little elementary school Monica, or middle school Monica, or high school Monica would have wanted to share her story, and I'll never know because I didn't get those opportunities and they weren't presented to me. But I can hold anger with that, but also some acceptance with the fact that it's not too late because everyone shares their story at their own pace. I don't know if I would have been emotionally ready yet. Or perhaps I would have been emotionally ready, but not in the sense that I am now, where I can fully own all of what I'm feeling and reflect on the different life stages, right? I think as a child, I was very, very, very focused on fitting in. I didn't want people to know I had cancer. People did not act rationally. They just could not understand how a kid could have cancer. And that caused me to be very silent. And I also wanted, I have a facial difference from my tumor. And I know that when people look at me growing up, they might have been like, what happened to you? And I kind of just didn't want to deal with that because it was something I still was processing. So now I'm just sitting and realizing the universe decided at this point in my life, you get to share it. And I'm a little bit worried because people I grew up with never knew I had a cancer history, don't know I'm a cancer survivor, and perhaps growing up, I didn't really want to own the term cancer survivor, and now I'm like, yep, that's me. I did it. I'm a cancer survivor, and it sucked, but I'm still here, and I'm not opposed to talking about it as much as I would have when I was younger. So I just want to thank you all for that space, and also say that as someone, again, who grew up before the digital age, I really didn't have any pictures of my cancer journey or my cancer experience. And these pictures that I took are not, they can never replace what I went through, but they're adding to the context of my story where I have something to look back on, because I think that holds a lot of power too. And it's just really special to me that I have new pictures to capture my cancer experience to this day, and I couldn't be more thankful for that.
One thing that I was always told was after a hurdle, there will always be a blessing. And I think I consider my cancer journey my hurdle. And after ringing the bell, I felt like I've continuously have gotten those blessings that, not in the sense replace, but allow me to be more okay and more confident with knowing that I'm not alone, and that I wasn't alone then. I feel like this project really helped me open up, especially because I am the first one in my family to ever be diagnosed with cancer. I didn't really have anyone to talk to who could really relate to what I was going through. It's one thing to say, I understand how you feel, but I feel like no one can really say they could really felt how I did feel. That was a very hard time for me, both emotionally and physically. And this project PhotoVoice allowed me to meet you girls and to meet people. And if I could go back and tell my younger self that eventually along down the road, you're going to meet people who are like you and you're going to be able to be more open, it's going to help you out so much. Because now there are still people, obviously, who are still finding out to this day that I have cancer. And it can sometimes be an awkward conversation. I understand people are curious, but there comes to a certain extent with asking questions, I feel, and sometimes the more personal or deep down they ask, I start to feel uncomfortable. I understand people are curious, and it's okay to be curious. I rather you ask me than assume. I think it comes from the way, I guess, people talk or the facial expressions they make. To me, it seems like they see me as that girl, the sick girl who had, the C word. And I don't want people to think that my journey defined who I am, because it's something that I've persevered. I've lived through it. I know what it feels like, but it shouldn't define who I am to this day, because I have done so much, and I feel like without going through what I went through, some of the things that I've done today probably wouldn't have been possible, but it's all because of what I did go through. And I love that, I'm able to meet new people and do things like PhotoVoice. It just makes me more excited to be able to do other things in the future, if there ever is, something else. I know with like the book club coming soon, like I'm so excited about that. Like, it's just opening me up to so many new opportunities that I didn't think I'd find myself in. And it's something that I'm absolutely loving. And I'm owning the fact, like I said before, I'm owning the fact that I am a cancer survivor and that something like this happened to me, but knowing that I'm not alone and I have a group of people that I can go to for support because they went through something that I went through.
It's pretty amazing to me how many of us struggle to own the term survivor when we are all textbook survivors, right? Went through cancer, survived it. That's all that it really takes. And all of us struggle to own that term. And I just find that really interesting. And it's very special to me to hear you guys saying now that you're owning that term and you're proud of it and you're willing to share about it. It's super special. There's just a lot of pressure as a survivor to portray your story a certain way, which we've talked about a little bit. And I think that we are currently working to rewrite that expectation for survivors who come after us, right? Of you don't have to tell only the pretty parts of your story. You can tell all of it. And people can handle it. And if they can't, that's kind of their own to deal with, right? So really special to hear. Does anyone have a specific picture of theirs that's either a favorite or just one that's coming to mind that they would want to take a stab at describing and sharing what it meant to you?
I can pick my favorite pictures of your guys, and you guys can describe them if you would like, if that would help. I will start with Monica and her bubbles, because that was one of my favorite pictures of, I think you were doing the dishes, and there were just bubbles everywhere. And I just thought it was so beautiful, but also I sometimes pull that up when I'm having a stressful day to kind of calm myself and just look at it. So
That was probably one of the most random photos I took, and it did become one of my favorites. Do you mind if I read like the narrative that I put on it? That way maybe everyone listening can kind of feel what I wanted to capture when I took the picture. I said, doing the dishes this week, these bubbles caught my eye. I think they represent and capture what it has felt like to be visibly invisible during my childhood and ongoing experience with cancer. In public or in the doctor's office, I'm lumped with everyone else, whether others my age or other cancer survivors. People see right through me. I'm translucent. Very rarely has anyone seen me as an individual with unique needs. I can exist alongside others, but I'm also evolving with certain limits and dreams. They are so focused on Monica today, but what acknowledgement or protection does little Monica or future Monica deserve? They don't understand the fragility of my life. They don't understand how hard it was to get here and how hard it is still. How words matter. How the absence of support or action matters. How being seen matters. How time matters. My survivorship journey deserved to be handled with the delicacy, investment, support, and concern of active treatment. I'm beautiful, but I can also burst. And I did love that one. I think it captured a little bit of my anger and my insecurities. I used to, if we went back to what else I would tell other people is, don't play the trauma Olympics with yourself. I played that so much. I tried to downplay my experiences or what comfort I was deserving of based on what had already happened in my life. And I told myself, well, since I can't remember every detail of my cancer journey because I was so young, doesn't mean I don't remember anything. Or since I didn't have like huge strands of beads of courage, doesn't mean what I went through didn't happen. Or because I didn't ring the bell, like I found out all of us didn't ring the bell. Is that right? Some I don't know. A good a good bunch of us did not ring the bell, and that was one of the hardest things for me to admit. And then I remember when someone said they didn't ring it and someone else said, my jaw dropped because I was like, what? So you don't know what other people are going through. It's so, this whole cancer, social media does a number. You know, you only see so much on social media or campaigns, and it paints the cancer experience as, you know, what you should be doing and what you're missing out on, and you know, a little bit of envy of like, oh, what did I not have the opportunity to do? And I just did that my whole life. And that again, I was like, well, also, since I have never said I'm a cancer survivor publicly, why do it when I'm 26? Is it too late? Like, why would I do it now? And no, do it whenever. It's never too late. And we should not be comparing our traumas because that gets us nowhere.
Shelly, I loved the picture you had when you were sitting and you had all of your prostheses circled around you, kind of like a clock.
Yeah, that was for the first week for impact. And my description was something along the lines of the greatest impact that is most visible to me every day is my prosthetic from it was a Ewing sarcoma, a bone cancer. So I ended up the best treatment was an amputation for me. So I walk with a prosthetic, and it's a huge part of my life. It was the first time that I have grouped them all together and really like thought through Shelly and all those stages and stages of life, stages of experience, stages of mental processing of what I've gone through, stages of even like grieving that goes along with an amputation. And it was a powerful moment for me to just process that. And I took those pictures with my mom. So to have her involved was powerful.
Gabby, one of my favorites of yours was your selfie where you had your port scar showing. I just thought it was a beautiful photo, and that was one of my favorites of yours, if you would like to talk about that.
Yeah, of course. So actually, fun fact, that was taken on my 20th birthday. I was at the beach and we had went out and I wanted to take pictures on the beach. So I took a little cute selfie of myself. The one reason why I actually shared that was because that's actually one of a handful of photos where my port scar is actually visible. And I was really like, I really wanted to open up and share about that. Just because I didn't know how, you know, if everyone had gotten a port or like how that worked. I know I did not start off with a port. I actually started off with a PICC line in my arm. And then later on down the road, I ended up getting my port surgery. But that's actually also one of my favorite pictures as well. I think that I've come to be more open with acknowledging, you know, my port and showing it off. There are on occasions where if I'm out in public, people will not see it as a port scar, but rather see it as, I'll be honest about this, but see it as a hickey. And it makes it a little funny joke, but then when I, you know, have to tell people, oh, it's not, then I have to kind of admit the truth to like, oh, like I had cancer, and then like it opens up like this big bubble. I don't have very many that show my port, so the ones that, you know, are shown that have it are special to me. I even actually have my actual port. It was given it to me after my treatment, in a little one of those, I forget what it's called, but one of those little baggies that, from the hospital. And I have it tucked away in a box. But every time like I go to show somebody like my pictures, it's one of the things that's brought up, like, this is what was inside me. This is what I received my treatment in. And even to this day, it's so weird to like look at it and consider like, oh my god, that's what was inside. Like that's just it amazes me. But yeah.
And Lily, my favorite of yours was the picture when you were, I believe, in Canada, of the cabin and the paint of the cabin.
Yeah, so that one was for time. I think that a place that you routinely go back to is such an interesting measure of time. And this is a shared family cabin in Northern Ontario. The first time I went up there, I was 5 weeks old, and I've gone every summer since, aside from the years that we couldn't cross the border because of the pandemic. So it's a very good measure of time for me. Like I went there before cancer impacted my life. I had several summers up there where I was in chemo, and then a lot since I have been in the survivorship stage. So I took this picture of the very old paint on the walls that was peeling, and it was kind of twofold for me because I think at first I saw it as the pieces that were missing where paint should have been reminded me of things that were maybe taken from me during my cancer journey, or things that I still struggle with. But then I started to think about it a little bit differently, and how maybe the peeling paint was peeling back layers of the story. And that's really symbolic of what PhotoVoice felt like for me as a whole. Like it really just felt like I had worked so hard to make my story a specific version of it for everyone to be able to stomach, really. And PhotoVoice allowed me to look a little bit deeper and at pieces of survivorship that I really had tried so hard not to think about. So it felt like that reframe was better suited to the PhotoVoice project. Well, I feel like we could talk forever because that's what we do best, chatting about our experiences. But I really just want to open the floor to ask if there's anything that you guys really want to share or that's on your heart in this moment that we haven't already talked about. I just want to hold space for whatever's coming up for you guys at this moment.
I meant to answer this earlier, but it was about something Monica said about ringing the bell. So, I remember, when I was sharing the one, I forget what game it was, but I was sharing my picture of me ringing the bell the one day, and Monica had shared that she didn't ring it, and then Kayla said she didn't ring it, and then it kind of bounced off. And then I don't know if this got revealed or not, but the day that me and Monica had our interview, it was revealed that I didn't ring the bell at Penn State. I rang my bell back in Maryland where I had did my proton radiation treatment. So I think that's something that we all should do. I think we should all definitely meet up, have something as a celebration, and we should all ring the bell and add confetti into the word. I think that would be so much fun.
That'll be the
and I
next
think we should
reunion for you guys.
Yes, I think we should do.
We'll do that for reunion too.
I think we should definitely do that because we were talking to Dr. Dandekar and we were like asking about it. And she says, oh, you can put confetti inside of it when you ring the bell. I was like, oh my gosh, we have to do this. So yeah, she's like, I don't remember. Did she say like when you pull, like ring it, then the confetti drop? I don't remember, Monica.
I don't know if it's that sophisticated. I think you ring the bell and then pick up confetti and put it in.
Oh, okay.
But I think that would really be really validating for other people to
show that, yeah, like your journey is not signified by a bell, and you can choose when you want that to happen. And yeah, like it's okay because again, I finished treatment in 2002. I don't think a bell was a thing in that age. And I thought, well, does that really mean like I went through cancer? I know that's such a silly thing to think, but I really did. I was like, I didn't ring the bell, so like there's no proof that I went through what I went through. And I think that would be really, really nice to ring it with you all because then I'm entering that space with you and I wouldn't be so alone. And I don't feel alone anymore, but I wouldn't do it alone.
Oh, we will definitely have to do that. That would be amazing. I also did not ring the bell. I don't think it was a thing when I finished treatment either. And if it was, I didn't know about it. So that would be a really special moment for all of us. All right, you guys. Well, I just wanted to say I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. And I'm grateful for our experience with PhotoVoice together and for Meredith organizing it and making such a beautiful gallery. And I just hope you can see how much it has impacted us and how much it still continues to impact us moving forward. You guys are sharing really, really powerful stories, and I wish that I had heard some of these when I was younger, and I'm very glad that I get to hear them now. So just thank you guys. Thanks for listening to Life on Pause. Ideas or suggestions for future episodes? Feel free to share them with us. Make sure you like, subscribe, or follow us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Join us for the next recording. Until next time.